All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Timothy Bradley says that Errol Spence Jr. might make it 9 rounds, but if it goes to 11, Terence Crawford is either going to stop him or knock him out. I heavily disagree with Timothy Bradley, and this is the most biased person of them all. I'm gonna break it down for y'all to y'all. Let's talk about it in this video. King Jr. got another video for y'all. Please share that you like and subscribe to the channel, and also share the video to get all your latest boxing news. With that being said, Timothy Bradley believes that Errol Spence Jr. may go the distance with Terence Crawford to the 9th round, but it goes past that far to the 11th. Terence Crawford is either going to knock him out or stop him. This is according to Timothy Bradley on what he says. You guys know that Timothy Bradley works for ESPN, and anything that comes out of his mouth is just biased as crap. And I have to disagree with Timothy Bradley, even though Timothy Bradley was a professional boxer himself and fought a lot of big names in the sport of boxing. Timothy Bradley, in my opinion, is completely wrong. I don't see it going that way. If you guys want to have more insight, I broke it down in my last video, in the Teddy Atlas video. And I'm kind of going to go into Terence Crawford's resume and talk a little bit more about Terence Crawford. But I do not believe that Errol Spence Jr. is going to get stopped in the 9th round. A lot of people believe that Terence Crawford is going to catch him with something and knock him out. Well, it's going to be very hard because Errol Spence, when he got clipped and his mouthpiece got dropped out of his mouth, he was hit with a 1-2 from Udenis Ugas, and he stumbled back. But Errol Spence Jr. showed us that he has a chin that he can beat. Well, it was a punch that Errol Spence didn't see, so those are the ones that hurt. But Errol Spence manned up and gritted and took the punches, even though he got hurt a little bit, but he stood up and took the punch like a man. So Errol Spence Jr., he took that like a man. But we're going to go into a little bit of Terence Crawford in my scenario. And so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to view the resume of Terence Crawford. I'm going to explain why I think Terence Crawford has slowed down in his career. All right, so I want to go ahead and explain to you guys on why Terence Crawford is starting to slow down in his career. So we're going to go back to 2014 from Yuri Gamboa, okay? Some people are confused on why I think Terence Crawford is struggling from orthodox to southpaw, okay? When Terence Crawford was at 135 pounds as a lightweight, right? He fought Yuri Gamboa, okay? Yuri Gamboa, we know that he had hurted Terence Crawford, but when Terence Crawford at that time was more of a utilized of an orthodox to southpaw fighter, Terence Crawford was barely getting touched by Yuri Gamboa, but Yuri Gamboa got lucky enough to land a clean shot on Terence Crawford and hurt Terence Crawford, but Terence Crawford wound up stopping Yuri Gamboa in the 9th round. So we go to Thomas Delorme. Terence Crawford was heading to the junior welterweight. Terence Crawford was looking remarkable in that fight. He was barely getting touched in the orthodox and southpaw switch stance, and Terence Crawford was having a lot of success. Now, this was a different type of Terence Crawford. This was a prime Terence Crawford. He did the same thing to Hank Lundy when he fought Henry Lundy. When he fought him, Terence Crawford was barely getting touched. He was looking like, you can say Terence Crawford was looking like trying to mimic a little bit of Floyd Mayweather's defense in a way, or Pernell Whitaker. He was barely getting touched, and he was making it look easy, right? And when he fought Victor Postol, let's state this right here, right? This was the last unanimous decision that Terence Crawford has had in a long time. And Victor Postol gave Terence Crawford a very tough fight, but Terence Crawford was barely getting touched in this fight, and he was savvy in the orthodox stance and savvy in the southpaw stance. So we know he fought John Molina. We know he beat the brakes off of him and stuff like that and stuff. So since then, when Terence Crawford start making his way up to this welterweight division, right? Okay, we know he beat the brakes off Jeff Horn. Okay, we're going to go to Jose Benavidez Jr. When he fought Jose Benavidez Jr., The size of Jose Benavidez Jr. was giving Terence Crawford a lot of problems. The timing of Jose Benavidez Jr. Was giving Terence Crawford a lot of problems. The hand speed was also giving Terence Crawford a lot of problems. But Terence Crawford made adjustments. He got what he did. Terence Crawford played that mid-range game on Jose Benavidez, and he knocked him out in the 12th round. So I give Terence Crawford all the props. We know he beat the brakes off of Amir Khan. Igis Kavaliakis. This was the main fight that everybody was worried about. Terence Crawford did get dropped in this fight, but he came back as that inner dog in him. He had success against Igis Kavaliakis. Terence Crawford looked him in his eye. He's like, I'm going to get my get back, and he knocked him out. He TKO'd him. So, and then this is where it starts getting tricky, right? Terence Crawford fights Kell Brook. Okay? This fight worries me, right? When he fought Kell Brook, okay, the first 3 rounds, Terence Crawford was losing. If you have not seen this fight, please go back and watch this fight. And if you look at Terence Crawford's face, it looks like he couldn't make adjustments to Kell Brook's jab alone, okay? Kell Brook was winning the first 3 rounds. When Terence Crawford made the adjustment to southpaw, he caught Kell Brook, I believe, with I think it was a left hook. I could be wrong. And Kell Brook stumbled on the ropes, and Terence Crawford stopped him in that mid-range games like he always did. Okay, so now we move on to Shawn Porter. Okay, I cannot say this anymore. When he fought Shawn Porter, right? He was losing to fight against Shawn Porter. If you go back and watch that fight as well, Bo Max says, I think Terence Crawford says, like, who's winning? And Bo Max said, it's not you. You're losing this fight. So Terence Crawford had the inner dog in him to go ahead and drop Shawn Porter twice in the 10th round, and we know how that fight ended. But before that, like the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and 7th round, if I remember, he was getting hit with the same punch over and over and over again. And if you guys look back closely, I believe Terence Crawford was in the orthodox stance the first round, but out the whole entire fight, he was, I believe, in that southpaw stance. So Terence Crawford, you know, he's not the switch hitter that he used to be. Terence Crawford really haven't been a switch hitter since you can arguably say towards the end of his 140-pound career. So I don't know, like I said before, I don't know if Terence Crawford, the struggle to make weight, not the struggle to make weight, I don't know if it's the money of Terence Crawford. I don't know if he's starting to lose focus in the sport of boxing. We know he's a gym rat, but at this point, do Terence Crawford really care about the sport of boxing? Is he really going to revamp himself, go back in the toolbox, go back in the lab and figure out how can I get my orthodox to southpaw stance switched back? Because he has not been doing that since really the welterweight division. He has been doing it, but he has not been doing it consistently on a consistent basis. But it's just the fact of the matter is that Terence Crawford, you know, he's going to have to be on his A game when he fight Errol Spence Jr. He cannot just go ahead and be orthodox one partial of the round and then go southpaw. It's not going to work because we know that southpaws don't like fighting southpaws, but Errol Spence shown us that he can rival with a southpaw any day. So it wouldn't matter to Errol Spence Jr. But Timothy Bradley believes that Terence Crawford is going to get him out within the 9th and 11th round. That's not going to happen. Errol Spence showed us that he has the chin. Errol Spence showed us that he's very defensive responsible. Errol Spence Jr. showed us that he can find his way on the inside if Terence Crawford decides to make an adjustment. Errol Spence Jr. has showed us that. But this is going to be a fight that everybody wants to see. And Terence Crawford said early today that he's going to knock out Errol Spence Jr. and Jermell Charlo. Prove me wrong, Terence Crawford. If you really think you're the best welterweight at 147, prove me wrong. Knock out Errol Spence Jr. Prove me wrong. But I don't think you're going to knock out Errol Spence Jr. I do not see that happening because Terence Crawford, you know why? I think age is really starting to catch up to him. It could be a scenario where Terence Crawford could have a phase in his career like Oscar De La Hoya. You know, Oscar De La Hoya got into his mid-30s and Manny Pacquiao retired the man. So who knows what's going to happen when this fight gets between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. One of these guys is going to break each other's will. I really don't see this fight going the distance. I fear a lot of people are thinking that it's going to be a draw. I don't know about that. I think is somebody's going to either get stopped or get knocked out, wherever the case may be. But I kind of gave you guys an insight on why I think Terence Crawford, the reason why he was more effective with the southpaw in orthodox switch up, because when he was younger, if you guys go back and look at Terence Crawford past fight, he was doing it more fluently on a consistent basis that he wasn't getting hit. But he was getting hit. He's getting hit now. I just don't know. But with that being said, Timothy Bradley believes that Errol Spence Jr. could be lucky enough to make it to the 9th round, or he could get knocked out in the 9th round or stop, or get out of there in the 11th round by Terence Crawford. I don't think that's the case. I think Errol Spence Jr. is going to do what Errol Spence Jr. at the end of the day. I think he's going to neutralize and make adjustments off the fly on Terence Crawford and neutralize anything that Terence Crawford throws at him at the end of the day. But that's just my opinion on the whole situation. With that being said, guys, it is what it is. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. This is your boy King Jr. I'm out of here. Peace.